Liberia, determined to make a constructive difference. I'm Larry Brockler, along with Ruben Dolly, and this is another special edition of the Liberian Renaissance, and
You ready?
we are very grateful to have
I'm going
with
on.
us Her Excellency, former President
Ready.
Ellen Johnson
I
Sirleaf,
think I put on. I think put
who
on.
has just returned from the United Nations General Assembly, the 80th celebration anniversary, and we're happy that she's been gracious enough to give us some time. Madam, welcome again to the program.
Thank you, Dr. Brookman. Ruben. It's always a pleasure to have a session with you all. With thanks to
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
Madam, I'll start out first. You just returned from UNGA, the UN General Assembly 80th session. Quite amazing, if I use that word, some of the things that happened there. Your address to that body, I want to talk about that a little bit, the reasoning behind your address, and your charge to the world relating to Israel and the Palestinian issue. So we're going to go step by step. I've got a copy of the speech that you've got. I want us to deal with some of that and then reactions from member states or some of the side events that you attended. What's happening here at the EGS Center for Women in Development. And we'll come to Liberia and some of the issues that is going on here, our governance and intolerance in every sector of our society. But first, UNGA, how was it?
it was a very, very overwhelming event. Many celebrations of achievements over the years, like the USA, United Nations, and celebration, celebration on other things that I'll talk about, things that I went to that didn't relate to the General Assembly specifically. But I was also pleased that the current president of the General Assembly, who is a German lady, had particularly invited me to speak at the General Assembly. That was exceptional because I was the third speaker for the Assembly meeting after herself and the Secretary General. The speech, was one that really was intended to be very candid. First of all, to recognize and say and show appreciation to the United Nations for the work in Liberia.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's the first thing I talked about in the speech. And then afterwards, of course, I talked about the general situation in the world, our changing world, and some of the views that I had to be able to comment on the changes that are going through.
Your speech, as I said to you, I watched it, I've read it over and over, and I want to take it step by step. You say to the world, and I quote, "We have learned hard lessons. Prevention costs less than reconstruction. Reconciliation is a process, not an event. Peace agreements require institutions and citizens to be real." I underline that. Where guns fall silent, skills training, jobs, justice, and dignity must follow swiftly. Let me repeat this. Peace agreement require institutions and citizens to be real. What do you mean by that, Madam?
to be citizens who believe in the ownership of their land and that express this ownership by being in their land, doing things for their land, being a part of the overall effort to advance the progress and stability of their land. And so that does not mean that as a human being they're not real. It means that the overall frame of mind of when we say being real is be a full part, a full actor in the country's endeavors.
You reminded the UN that its largest peacekeeping mission at that time in the world was in Liberia, and that they pushed to disarm, stop the fighting, reforming the security institutions, creating space for reconciliation and growth. You mentioned about India's role and the all-female police unit, strengthening protection, strengthening public trust. The UN mission ended with Liberia, you say, standing on its 2 feet, out of war into a fragile peace with accountability, inclusive dialogue, and economic opportunity for young people. That's how it ended. The question is, where are we? How do you see juxtaposing what you said here with the reality on the ground in Liberia, talking about accountability and economic opportunity for young people? Are those two things evident in our society today?
Well, let's put it this way: the UN peacekeeping operations ended in 2018, thereabouts.
Thereabout.
Yeah, and since that time, we have had other regimes that are managing the country. So it's quite different from to say that anything different. We can get into that, but if you relate it to the UN efforts, I would say that they did their job. They didn't do it alone. They did it along with so many African countries, who brought all of their efforts toward that task. Now, have we achieved the goals that were set? With the United Nations when peace was ushered into, and we had an opportunity now to be on our own and to be able to achieve our own vision and our own agenda. Have we achieved it all? No, cannot say that.
So why is that, madam?
Well, first of all, let's say that when we started after the UN, that was when they stopped. It was at the end of my administration. My administration had been the one that had ushered in
Yes.
the peace, the stability, and the framework for reconstruction, the basis to put in the fundamentals, and to be able to move on from that. I cannot say that I achieved everything that I had hoped for, achieved everything that I should have. I can't say that. But I do believe that we did leave the country in a state whereby it could now proceed to build upon the foundation that I had made. And that foundation would lead to the overall national goals that we had set. And our goals, went as far back as the goals for 2030. and we would be able to achieve all the things we had for reconstruction, for peace, for stability. Yes, I think we have achieved peace, and I'm very pleased that I don't think any Liberian would like to see Liberia go back to war. I think we all know the destruction of war and how difficult it is to reconstruct. We're still going in a process of reconstruction right now. And I think our biggest issue now is continuity in effort, is being able to really look at the vision and goals that were all agreed to when we started this journey of reconstruction, peace, and stability, to say, have we faltered? Have we not measured up? Have we met all the things that we promised the Liberian people we would do? And I think you have to say that the result is mixed. There have been some achievements, no doubt. There have been many failures, no doubt. And so it's a question of how we now look at the total picture and see what is the future. And the future, I'm afraid, comes from the young people. Is because the young people today, we accept this premise all over the world that their demands, their calls, their action, their responsibility, their participation in everything is going to be the key. And certainly Africa, with the highest percentage of young people in the world, and Liberia, a part of that too, highest percentage of young people, will now have to respond to that call, to respond to it in ways in which we have to depart from some of the old ways. We cannot in Liberia do things the way we've always done them. There has to be change, structural changes, constitutional changes sometimes if necessary, certainly legal changes, certainly policy changes and policy action. If we don't do that, we're going to be left behind as Africa today. Through all of its leaders have said, the sovereignty of Africa is the primary concern, and we must do it ourselves, and we must do it the right way.
You talk about Africa here, and you say, and I'm quoting your speech, Africa's story is not separate from the world's story. Conflicts across borders are amplified by disinformation, inflamed by the illicit flow of weapons, and prolonged by profiteers. Humanitarian law is strained, civilians, especially women and children, pay the highest price. Regional rivalries and great power competition too often paralyze the institutions designed to prevent and stop war. What do you mean by that? That's strong.
That pertains to the world situation that may not necessarily have Liberia as a part of that.
Right.
We're talking about the world as it
Yes,
stands today.
absolutely.
We're looking at how multilateralism in the world has just about come to an effective halt, come to effective halt. We look at global cooperation between nations, and you can see that we see the world is headed towards war. You can see the rearming of the major powers of the world. You can see that the support of through collaborative effort with countries who are underdeveloped, countries that have followed the international standards called for over the years, that support has dwindled. Official development assistance has been largely reduced, not only by the United States, but by other major powers as well. So the world is in a rather a state of uncertainties. And so what we're reflecting here is that much of those uncertainties comes from the fact that the major powers who have established the international standards are no longer the ones that are respecting them. They are not are the ones that are again being the leaders to be able to ensure that others will follow their example. And I think that's the message I was trying to say. It's not a message that comes from me alone. I think if you listen to
Many
a lot of
speakers
the
globally, yes.
statements at UNGO, you will see
Yes.
that the same reflection is just carried in different words, by different leaders. And I think it's time we should all listen to the implication and the consequences of those words and those remarks.
Two more points with your remarks at the hunger, and we'll move to other things. But you asked the question, have global structures and leaders failed us? Why are they so silent, content to see women and children suffer from acts of inhumanity, as in Gaza, in Ukraine? Are we to continue to accept the imbalance of global power, reflected in the Security Council? Use the veto that limits current tools for peace building and peacekeeping. That's kind of strong.
Kind of strong but true. All of us sit before our television set in the night or in the day, and we see what's happening to women and children. We see young girls and boys too, with a pen in their hands, begging for food. We see young people trying to vote for safety. We see hospitals, have been bombed with people there seeking help to this, and there is no response from the leaders of the world. Do you think we ought to speak to that? I'm surprised that not enough people in the world are speaking to these things because it's so unfair. Whether it's in Ukraine, whether the destruction of structures, take place with impunity, whether particularly with Gaza, with the nations really facing the kinds of atrocities that we observe from day to day. One has to speak about it. And yes, why are they silent? I can say that over and over again. I know I'm a long-standing diplomat. I'm a long-standing international servant. And I know that these matters happen because there are too much discussions, there are too much agreements, there are too much misunderstanding, and everyone is being properly politically correct as they try to look through these matters. But I do think that we've reached a place where it needed to be told, and it's told by so many people. And let's hope that now enough word have come on this during the August session, and we will now find the leaders of this world do what they ought to do or should have done by finding a way to use diplomacy for discussion, peace. And as far as the Security Council is concerned, that's a standing matter.
Yes.
Where Liberia, including every other country in Africa, the African Union, have said that the imbalance of powers in the Security Council is unacceptable. That you have to bring in others, and that you can't have the 7 countries with a veto power be the ones that continue that. That you have to have this imbalance corrected. So, and I believe that's accepted by the world now. Action to make to bring the remedy to that still remains as we watch and see what will happen after this hunger, as we go toward the new year when everyone's calling for a return to the old order. I just hope it works.
you can tell that I love your speech, and not just this one, but all your speeches. But I'm closing now on this matter, and we'll move to other things. But you said this is the 80th commemoration. You said commemoration without candor is unaffordable. That's strong. But you didn't stop there. You called for change. You said a call for change, a renewed vision of collective security, and a broader approach to the triple planetary crisis and worsening inequality. The design of a new vision, better together, that ensures immediate protection of civilians, finance for conflict prevention, proposals that pay real people, leaders who are audible and accountable, women at the table with budgets that guarantee their participation in all negotiation delegation, de-weaponization of the information space. And that's more than a mouthful.
Yeah.
You whistle, say Liberia, you whistle.
I was just listening to another statement of another Liberian leader talking about the whole thing about the protection of journalists.
Yeah.
And we have so much, and over the world, you can see where journalists have come and have been attacked, have been dismissed, have suffered all kinds of indignities because they speak the truth. Of course, we also want to make sure that journalists speak the truth.
Absolutely.
But we say de-weaponizing it. We don't want to see people subject to those kinds of something just because they speak. I think that's a fundamental right anyway. That's embedded in the world, embedded in the statements of the United Nations. So
none of this, you say, is beyond our reach. It demands humility to listen, courage to compromise, and persistence to implement. Peace is built not only in conference rooms, but in classrooms where girls learn without fear, clinics where mothers deliver safely, markets where youth find dignified work, courts where law is fair, and in daily acts of neighborly coexistence. Were you now talking about Liberia at this
we're
point?
talking about Liberia and the world, talking about all of it. And let me tell you, so I can expose a fact that I wanted this speech to be the type of speech it was. And I didn't want it to reflect just my thoughts. Mhm. So I called a couple of young people together. One of them was Jorweah. And I said, now let's sit down and let's prepare a speech that will shock the world. Because we tell the truth that people don't like to hear.
And you did.
Oh,
Your
yeah.
speech does.
So I said, let's sit down now and talk. What are the things we'd like to see in this new world? What we want to see in this new world after the 80th anniversary and celebration of the United Nations? What should the leaders of the world begin to pay attention to? So this speech was a reflection of that. And I must say, let me say, I don't know how it's regarded in Liberia, but this speech has reached with great acclaim all over the world.
I follow that.
We get people calling and say, I expected for one or two people to call me and say, oh, you were getting trouble. Trouble how? How? For what? I've passed that stage where I'm scared of trouble. I've been through the worst trouble you can think of. So my skin is thick.
I have to say, it was a great speech. Of course,
You know, happy or you?
everybody say that for me, I'm a fan, yes, but this speech did it for me. I was watching the television and I was cheering, and I said, that's the EJS that I know. One thing again before we move on. The reaction from member states towards the Israeli Prime Minister and the state of Israel with respect to Gaza and the Palestinian people What's your take on that?
When you say reaction, I don't know what you mean.
Many of them walked out.
Oh, okay, that's what you mean. I thought you meant that.
Because, and many of your well, I can't say your colleagues, I mean, but a lot of countries now have recognized the Palestinians.
One thing I try not to do is to talk about events in other people's countries here, right?
But you mentioned
Gaza. Yeah, but that's different. I was speaking on behalf of the people who are affected.
Yes.
Now, speaking in the words of so many people all over the world.
Absolutely.
With the same type of expression, the same type of feeling. But when it comes to how people reacted to one leader of the world, in this particular case, President Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, when you know how you react, I think out felt they did not want to hear what was going to be said. And they had every right
to do that.
They did what they wanted to do. So I had no view on that. They exercised their right.
Absolutely. Even at the UN, there may be some semblance of democracy, except the Security Council.
Add your part.
I add my part to it. But what other side events did you participate in? I know there was an event for women and
some very good events there. I went to go with at the Clinton Global Initiative. I was presented along with on the EJS Center and the work there, and so the head of the center and the cooperating the CEO of the center, my granddaughter was with me, and we presented to the audience. But the interesting part about that was it was the 20th anniversary of the Clinton Global Initiative.
Okay.
And this particular mind going out to meet their audience was a 20-year celebration also of the last time I went there. That was in 2005 when I went before that audience to plead with investors to please do something in Liberia. There were no hotels operating. And that's the time Robert Johnson, people may remember.
Yes.
When now you have the RLG. And Robert Johnson at that meeting committed to same day that a hotel was built in Liberia. That's the hotel we have still operating today. That's the one that all those people who are now working at the desert future they went there. Stay there for.
Not part of my talking point.
Stay there for a couple of weeks. So, but that the good part is it's still operating.
Yes.
I believe it's now being purchased by a Ghanaian investor, but it's still running.
Standards are still high. I've been there.
So this time, this appeal at that time was to do this for something. This particular time was to talk about the EGS Center and the fact that this would be a structure for the convening of women.
Talking about the EGS Center, what's new here now?
Oh, I guess the next basic, first of all, the appointment of a Liberian executive director is now in place. The former deputy at the Land Authority, Ministry of Information, has gone through.
The board has approved now.
She's gone through a rigorous process, where she went through a process with 4 others. Another Liberian who's based in Nigeria, but then he has someone from Ghana. He had someone from Kenya. No, and she won.
I'm happy you got a Liberian.
And she has been appointed. And so the staffing of the center now still have some key people that are high directors of the center, but they operate from their own location, and it works. But it's now more and more Liberian institution, and it's now well grounded. is now well internationalized. The biggest thing now is our what we call our North Star.
Yeah.
That means what is the main thing you really want? That North Star is the construction of this Africa Women House that will be able to be the place for training of women, for the meetings of women, for international events relating to women, and something that would be a legacy for Liberia, international, for international crowd. Now, of course, where are we? The dry season is coming. We
Construction
hope to start construction. The first thing, of course, is to do something about the sea,
Yeah.
to make sure that
Erosion will
that you prevent that. So we hope that, and to raise the money. I must say we have raised that 50% again, and
That's a lot.
yeah, and a major thing that came from an African president. I'm still waiting for the Liberian president.
He will deliver.
But I just want you to know the African president have been doing their part.
The Liberian president will deliver. I can go to the bank on that one. You talk about a major center for women and women. So men will not be allowed to have events there. I mean,
No. You will have
okay, just.
we have national events that involve matters that relate to people, to young people,
Got you.
and to
Gotcha.
all.
This is your program, The Liberian Renaissance, changing minds and changing attitudes. We're in conversation. Former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and it's going well. We're at her office in Sincor, and thank you for following us. Madam, now, what's your take on the overall governance of Liberia amidst reported acts of indiscipline in our country? We seem to be more and more intolerant of people, their views on issues, especially politics. As you see it, because you're former president, but you relate to the society and you go places and people relate to you. What's your take? Where are we going left and how can we come right?
Well, it's a mixed picture. As far as I can see, and I may not have all the statistics and all the data to get me fully informed when I speak. But from what I'm able to do, based upon my own knowledge, is that it's a mixed picture. There are some good things that are happening. I'm very pleased to see some young professional people. Some of them were in my administration who have left. Some of them have returned. Some others that were out doing specialized training have returned. They have been given positions of authority, positions of decisions, and they are performing. And so I see many good things happening in that respect. I think when it comes to overall governance, and overall governance is not just one person. Overall governance,
Collective effort.
It's a collective effort. We have three branches of government, and the three branches of government need to all perform in keeping with their constitutional duties to carry it out, as required by law, as required by policy. And that's where we have some failings, some shortcomings, because things are not moving in certain ways as they should. And more importantly, I come back to the thing about change. Some of the things that are being done that are not good are things that you cannot say just started in this administration. Some of it goes back to previous administration, including my own,
Like,
So I'm the first one to say to you that I should have done some things that I didn't do. But because the way finance are managed, the distribution of government support to others is so imbalanced. People at a certain level make so much money, people way down here to make enough to even survive, so, but that's not something that just started, it's way back there. What we need is a leader that is ready, that has the strength to make the change. And I say it over and over, maybe we all politicians who sit on small, let's get some strong management of the economy. But the good things, that's all, they always say, don't talk things that are not true, praise the things that are good, criticize the things that are not good. That's why I say it's a mixed picture. So we still have a long way to go.
What are some of the good things that you see?
The LEC, Liberia Electricity Corporation, is doing a very good job with limited support. I would say they need more of that. I've looked at the young people who are doing the environmental protection things. I think they are doing a good job. Water and sewer, some of those that are really, with limited capacity and resources are working. I saw some improvement at RIE, and I was very pleased with the lightings and everything. So those are many other things. And now we expect, I can't say some road systems. I mean, visual. I'm sure you have seen that.
Yes.
I've talked about it.
Yes.
The road system that taking people now into Papa. I mean, some of those roads we started, some of them, and incidentally, one of the good things too, many of the things we started that were not carried on
Are now being
in the
carried.
past, they are now starting. The Redemption Hospital, I went out there myself to see the structure. I'm waiting for them to dedicate it. I went there and took a picture because we started it.
Yes.
And then it didn't go through for the past few years. But now I got there and people were working and it's looking so nice. It's going to be dedicated. The Lofa Road, we started it. It has started and it faltered. I believe it's now picking up again when we go. Even the roads that go.
Why did it falter? It's my job to ask the question.
There was not enough attention paid to it. That's all. Not enough attention was paid. Whether it's through by the professionals, whether it's by the leaders, whether it's by the decision makers, it just did not get the attention that was required to achieve the level of continuity in development. Because that's the idea. Where we started, we were not perfect. We did not do everything. We had some failings and some shortcomings. But the idea was, next person who comes picks up what's there, carry it to another.
And that's what government's supposed to do.
And the next person picks it up from there, carry it to. That's how, because reconstruction is difficult. Destruction is so easy. It takes years to reconstruct.
It's not that even years.
And we still are going through that process right now. So it will take strength and determination by all of our leaders to do the right thing. So discontent is spreading here.
Right.
That is true. Has to be addressed at the highest level. You have to communicate with the people.
Yeah.
I think communication, because we know people have the best intention.
Yes.
And the best ideas. They want to see Liberia develop. They want to do the right thing. You got to tell the people what you are doing, what the plans are, what the progress is, what some of the difficulties are, what some of the constraints are, what is required on their part to make the whole thing work, because it has to be collectively, not only those who govern, but those who are governed. So I said it before,
Yes.
the people have as much responsibility on their own as the leaders have. The leaders may have a higher responsibility because they are elected by the people to do what the people require. But at the same time, the people themselves have to have certain responsibility. They have to love their country, have to do their part. You know? So, somebody, I mean, give you an example. Somebody, a group, not somebody, group wrote me, got a letter to put money because they want to do farming all over the country. And they show all the counties will have so many people there doing farming. So I wrote in and said, you know, that's a laudable thing. I applaud you. I just want to tell you one example. I'm a farmer too.
Exactly.
My farm is small, but in my farm, I grow enough plant. I grow enough vegetable. I got farm. I grow palm oil there. I process palm oil there. And it all self-effort. Just think, if all of you are just
Join the little part.
sometimes it just takes that self-effort and determination. And
Let's take a little bit with the positives that you talk about. And when you were talking about the Lofa Road discontinuation and others, I saw a bit of a smile coming. Now, some will say she's excited because the Unity Party government is continuing what Unity Party government started. But it's more of a directional approach in the idea of continuity in governance because the money that started the Lofa Road was government money funded by some partners and so on. And its continuation is the same. But the problem that I see in many of these is that sometimes when one government leaves and the other comes, they stop literally what the other government was doing and start something new. It hurts the country's rapid development, doesn't it?
it's wrong. That distracts from development. It takes away from progress. No doubt. There's no two and way answer to that. No. It doesn't say that you shouldn't have your own vision and your own agenda. It doesn't stop you from putting in new things. But unless it's something that is contrary to law, contrary to development, if you do not carry those on, then you take away from the overall effort to be able to achieve development at the pace that's required to achieve those aims.
We're winding down and we'll soon be done. What's your take on where we are as a nation with the fight against corruption? And don't forget, sometimes you go to bed and you wake up and you say, oh, I think we're alive again. I think we're free. And then you hear of another matter of corruptibility and another one in all places, madam.
That is still a problem in our country. A serious, serious problem. I don't know what more we can do. You see, because some of the systems that were put in have not been respected or have not been continued. You know, like county development fund. You know, that came is very clear. What the purpose of that was. It was a method of decentralizing financial support. Some of those things have not been carried on. I don't know why. So the overall situation, the management of public resources, and we have to say it. We have to say it because it's true. The overall management of public resources has a lot to do to put it at the place where the country will achieve its goals. Corrections are required, there's no doubt about it. And everybody will say so. I see some effort. A couple of people who are financial managers that I applaud because I think they're capable and I think they mean right. I think the Minister of Finance is an old
Yes.
protege of mine.
Absolutely.
And I know that he has the capacity and he has the intent to do the right thing. The same thing with the person at the LRA. It's also 100% right. I applaud, I extol him
Yes.
for the performance he gave in my administration and his whole
And even now,
his ability and his intention. These are-
pushing towards
these
$1
are
billion
good-
in
these are
revenue
good
collection.
people who know what to do and they're trying. There's a distraction somewhere else that may be limiting them carrying it out to their fullest ability. And sometimes the distraction is not necessarily with the presidency. We got some distractions also in our legislature. Our legislature got to rethink what they are doing. They got to rethink their role. They got to rethink the resources that they command and how those resources that they command means that it denies the greater good. It denies greater population. Somebody will say, oh, well, you know, that the Eric Lopop been making that money long time. So don't let her talk because she, government, they were making the same money. Yes, that may be true. First of all, I would challenge whether it's exactly the same. But even if it were, you're there to change it. You're there to make it better. You're not there just to say, oh, it was there. That's why I said things are now all good or pure in my administration. I admit to that. I stand on my own record, of course, in every way possible. And that one I would say and say is strongly. But beyond that, we had failures. We had people who did wrong things. We had some corrupt people in our government. It's always been that way. But let's call on our new leaders who promise to change it. Please change it. Take a stand. Speak out.
Listening and watching us from across the world, this is your program, The Liberian Renaissance, changing minds and changing attitudes. Here we say not ethnicity, but nationality. Not individualistic attitudes, but rather the we consciousness, we the people residing in Liberia, determined to make a constructive difference. I'm Larry Brockler, along with Ruben Dolly, and this is another special edition of the Liberian Renaissance.